Marsha, are you still in Wisconsin?
Yep, still here. Just had a crazy storm that came and it's gone already.
Oh, is it cooler up there? Say we're hot down
Yes.
here.
Yeah, it feels good. The air quality is really good right now. I found this app that's called Air Now. It's the EPA thing. And Sullivan has like perfect air quality, and I can't get anything for St. James. It's too small, I guess. And it doesn't have Rowlett either. So I was able to find Sullivan, but yeah, it's nice out. I'm gonna run out as soon as we're done.
Where are you at in Wisconsin?
What was that?
Where are you at in Wisconsin?
I'm in Friendship, Adams.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's like northwest of the Dells.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little place called Rabbit Rock that's real close to me, where you climb up this rock.
My family's from Barneville and Dodgeville and Hollandale.
Oh, I'm not sure where that's at.
Just south of you a little bit. It's kind of between Madison and Platteville.
Oh, okay. So we
150.
probably drive that way.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just our quick reminder, usually at the beginning, about that what is Women Owning Woodland? That's our program that's developed to provide learning opportunities to women landowners and woodland enthusiasts. We organize field days, lunch and learns, classes that are generated towards women forest landowners and woodland enthusiasts. Just a reminder about the Facebook page. Try to share some things on the Facebook page as far as opportunities and just any information. And then this week I do have, again, kind of that list of upcoming events. So we have the Summer Woodland Steward webinar series that starts August 17th. That'll be 3 Tuesdays, and it'll cover, the one is like understory tree and shrub identification. And then we actually have a more extensive talk about assessing your woodland mast for wildlife. And then there's a third one that's going to be on cost share. So that'll be virtual. So you'll be through Zoom 7 to 8:30 on Tuesday evenings. And that's through extension. And the other thing I put up here is the Forestry Summit. So this is a meeting. It's usually forest professionals as well as landowners kind of all in one place. And it is 2 days long. It's up in Columbia. And it covers kind of like the state of Missouri's forests and different things that are coming down the pipe as far as forest goes. And that is sponsored by, so Extension sits on the board for this, but it is actually sponsored by the Forest and Woodland Association of Missouri, otherwise known as FWAM. And then anyone that's up in the northeast part of the state, we will have a WOW Women Caring for the Land Field Day in Kirksville on the 27th, and registration's open for that. And then my last one, I've set August Lunch and Learns, but I've not set up the link for registration, but I'll email that out with the recordings that I owe you from last week and this week. But those dates next month, it'll be on Mondays. So, and then without further ado, I'm going to jump into talking about mast for wildlife is our topic for the day. So mast refers to the dry fruit from woody plants. And this includes maple samaras, elm samaras, ash samaras, pine nuts, nuts from oak, hickory, black and walnut trees. We also talk soft mast, which is often things like persimmon, pawpaws, blackberries. All of that is food sources for wildlife. Hard mast is our primary fall and winter food sources for a lot of our wildlife species. So as nuts starts to fall, acorns start to fall, this is going to provide a lot of valuable nutrients and nourishment as we go into the fall and winter. It also lasts them oftentimes through that winter as we don't have as much other browse that they would rely on. So acorn mast, acorns are some of our most valuable masts for woodland wildlife. They provide a really high fat, high protein food source when a lot of our other food sources have gone dormant. So, and this is, again, very common for us to have acorns in Missouri because we have a large number of oaks. Not all acorns are created equal though. So some just quick basics about acorn production. Oaks have female and male flowers on the same tree, but wind pollination is going to ensure that we crossbreed, which is going to give us kind of better pollination and better viability. Trees with codominant or dominant crowns. So those are going to be trees that we see that have their leaves up in that overstory. Those are going to produce more acorns than our overtop trees. Even if they're the same age, our trees that have poorer growing conditions or poorer growing form are going to generally produce fewer acorns than the ones that are up there getting a lot of sunlight. Acorn production can be variable. So things like poor pollination can lead to a poor acorn crop. Late frost can lead to a poor acorn crop. Drought, so they will drop their acorns early or prematurely. And then kind of a throwback to our forest entomology from a couple weeks ago. If we have large numbers of acorn weevils, this can also affect our acorn production as they, if you remember this guy from a couple weeks ago, when we talked about entomology, they lay their eggs on the acorns and then they tend to eat that inner mast portion, which again makes them a lot less valuable as a food source for wildlife. So there's 19 species of oaks and several hybrids. So some of our oaks can cross-pollinate and we end up with a hybrid oak species. They still produce acorns. Different groups, we have two different groups, red oak group and the white oak group. So red oak group includes our red oaks, so northern red oak, black oak, any of the ones that have, remember the bristle tips that we've talked about in past meetings. And in the red oak group, it takes them, they actually have 2 growing seasons in order to produce a crop of acorns. So if you look at them, you will see kind of 2 different size acorns on those trees about this time. So you'll see the immature ones that were flowers this year became acorns, and then they're going to have to go through a second growing season before they're mature. And then the larger ones are the ones that have already gone through those 2 growing seasons. Red oaks also are higher in tannic acid and a little bit more bitter, or a lot more bitter than our white oak group acorns, and they are not as preferred. So they are a valuable food source, but not as preferred as the white oak group acorns. So, and then our white oak group, so white oaks, bur oaks, post oak, those are going to produce acorns all in the same growing season. So we had, flowers in the spring turned into acorns, and then they mature throughout the season. And then they will start to drop late August, September is when they'll start to drop their acorns. These are also tend to be less bitter and the preferred preferred food source. Both groups have unpredictable acorn production. So generally speaking, a tree will have a good crop of acorns 1 year out of every 3 to 4 years. And this, again, there's a lot of variability because things like late frost, drought conditions, and sometimes if we'll see that it can not only lead to a poor crop that year, but maybe the next year, say we had adverse growing conditions this summer, the next summer, the trees tend to put on more acorns in response to having had a poor year. And then this 2 growing seasons, if we tend to have a bad crop of white oak acorns, oftentimes we have mature acorns on the red oak group that are going to fall, and they kind of fill in on those poor seasons. Individual trees produce more acorns than others. So if you have lots of oak trees in your woods, you probably can vouch for this, that you walk through there and you'll see some trees that produce more acorns overall than other ones. And then if you are really interested in managing for mass production, identifying the trees as good producers and marking those. So if you're going to go forward with any other kind of timber management, TSI or harvest, retaining those ones that you've identified as good mass producers can benefit wildlife down the road. This is a good time to start identifying your good acorn producers. So our acorns are kind of reaching maturity, and you can see them well on the tree right now. You can use binoculars and a good sunny day and kind of identify those acorns on the branches. And this can help you mark the trees and document what their production looks like. If you really, again, this is focusing on wildlife management here. If you're, again, want to move forward with kind of thinking more about mass production and acorn production, checking right now, August, September, noting the trees that seem to produce even in off years. So this is it helps to check your trees more than 1 year in a row, so you can note which ones produce and which ones don't. And you know what an off year looks like and what a good acorn year looks like, and you can still mark the ones that are those good producers. Before conducting a TSI, you want to identify and retain those best acorn producers in your stand. Thin around the trees identified as your good acorn producers. And for, again, like variability and thinking about, because sometimes we have a bad crop here in a white oak, but our red oak is good, and vice versa. So it's good to retain a mixture of red and white oak species so that we don't have any large year-to-year fluctuations. That kind of keeps your acorn crop consistent. And your goal, if you're, again, thinking kind of about mass production, which is, we're really lucky in Missouri because, white and red oak not only produce this very, valuable food source for wildlife, but they also tend to produce pretty high quality timber that has value to us in Missouri. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds by managing for oaks. Again, thinking about trees that you want to retain, consider tree diameter when determining which trees you want to keep. Not all trees have a well-defined diameter related peaks, but some do. So northern red oak, for example, their acorn production is going to peak when diameter at breast height reaches 20 inches. And then after that, it actually starts to gradually decline as they kind of have hit maturity, and then they're kind of starting their decline, kind of, again, not to say towards mortality because they still have a while to go, but they will hit their peak of acorn production at about the 20-inch. White oak, on the other hand, seems to peak at 26 inches. So again, pretty large trees with that. I will say that there's been some work done with oak genetics to forest keeling just north of like St. Charles County near St. Louis. They have actually worked with, the white deer group, a white-tailed deer group, to develop an oak tree that actually produces acorns faster, so at a younger age and a smaller DBH, in an effort to produce that food source for wildlife. So, and then here's kind of just if you're trying to think about how you should rank it, because you're like, oh, it looks like it's got a lot of acorns, but maybe it doesn't. So this is, again, kind of an easy ranking system if you're going through and looking at trees and trying to decide if they're good producers or maybe poor producers. So looking at the white oak group, if they have 18 or more acorns per branch on average, we would consider them an excellent producer. 12 to 17 good, 6 to 11 fair, 5 is poor. The red oak group, they do tend to overall produce more acorns per branch. So from their catkin, their flower that develops, seems that overall they have more acorns. So then there's kind of their ranking system. So anything with 24 more acorns per branch is in that excellent category. Then 16 to 23, 8 to 15, and 0 to 7. So again, if you're kind of looking for something that helps you with a ranking system, if you're thinking about trees to leave and trees to cut out, this can help with that system. So, and then here's kind of an angle that, so this is looking from the ground up. So it's good to view the tree through binoculars on a bright sunny day. And then you can see those acorns silhouetted against the sky. They can still be tricky. They'll blend in, especially, they're still kind of in a green stage right now. And they do blend in, but looking up this way, and can, again, also, this is a good example of clear blue sky behind it. But all of us have probably walked through the trees and looked up, and it's not always as easy to see or identify those acorns. But again, you can look at just a couple branches on one tree to get kind of those averages. You don't have to count the acorns on every single branch. You just should pick out a few branches and count the acorns on those. Mass production by DBH. So here's some trees that, some oak species that over a 7-year study, and this came out of the Appalachian Mountains, but you can see that different species have peak acorn production at different DBHs. So and again, our 3 big ones that we have in Missouri are going to be white oak, black oak, and northern red oak. And I find it super interesting. Black oak seems to, as it gets bigger and bigger, it continues to have peak acorn production. So usually we see a decline as they mature. So that's really interesting. Some other mass producing trees and shrubs to be on the lookout for. So if you're thinking about mass production for wildlife, in the hard mass category, so this is going to be like nuts, samaras, pine seeds. So that's also going to include hickory, hazelnut, black walnut, maples, and ash in Missouri. And some of these are going to be utilized by wildlife more than others. So for example, hickory and black walnut, they tend to be more valued by squirrels and mice and voles and other rodents that we have, which is not always, if we're thinking about kind of game species, we usually think deer, turkey, quail. So they don't always have high value for the kind of game species we tend to manage for, but they do have a value for other wildlife, which in turn feeds other levels of our food chain. So by having a healthy rodent population, this can help our raptor population by providing them with a food source. So again, if you're thinking biodiversity, those are also good trees and shrubs to have. Hazelnut or filbert, you might have heard referred to as filbert. They are going to be, they actually get eaten quite a bit by deer as well. So they get grazed on. I'm not sure if turkey, I'm sure they probably do eat hazelnuts. I know we have some hazelnuts around us, and I can't hardly find a ripe nut to collect. So they're usually all eaten by the time they get to being completely ripe. And then maples and ash, so they tend to produce their samaras, which is again a valuable food source to our wildlife. They aren't as valuable for the fall winter piece because they tend to produce their samaras kind of earlier in the summer, late spring. So they are consumed, but they don't hang around as long. And then our soft mast species include pawpaw, persimmon, black gum, blackberry. Another one we don't think about as a soft mast, but dogwood. So they produce those reddish kind of berries at the end of where their flowers are. And that is consumed by wildlife. And then elderberry. And those are soft mast. And so they generally are consumed in a shorter period of time than our hard mast because they aren't going to last as long and provide that valuable food source for an extended period of time. So, and today was a shorter one, so I'm done a little early. Any questions today? I can stop sharing and share my screen today.
Yeah, acorns are funny because I never noticed them until they hit the ground.
Yeah, Yes, it tends to be that way. And they, I know they'll go along, and then they seem to mature very fast, kind of the last month. They put on a lot of growth and then they start to fall. So
thought
I
it was-
haven't, what?
Oh, I was gonna say, with the red oak, I didn't notice the every other year thing. But you do get them every year. It's just, it takes them 2 years to grow.
Correct. Yes, so if you look at a branch, you will, and sometimes people will see these on the ground, you'll see kind of like immature acorns this time. That's kind of, some of them will fall with the mature ones, like, windstorm comes through and they'll fall down, but you'll see, and they don't have a very developed nut in the cap strand. So those are often the ones that are immature that should stay on the tree for the next year to go through their maturity. But I was going to say, I haven't decided this year if it's going to be, and I'm in the woods, right? I'm here at Wordack doing some work today. Say we have some of the properties being logged. So we came out to take some video of that. And then we're also marking some trees for a new project we have going. And so I need to start looking up today as well more and look for acorns as well. I'm not sure, the late frost we had this past spring may very well cause a decline in our acorn crop this year. So I guess I'll have to pay more attention this afternoon while we're marking and make note. And then from the chat, are there species of dogwood that grow better in the northern climate than others? So there's, of course, our flowering dogwood, which is our most commonly recognized species of dogwood, and they tend to do pretty well in northern Missouri. You might also have some luck with gray dogwood. And then for persimmons, so all of our persimmons in Missouri are the same species, but what you might find or have luck with is persimmons that are native to northern Missouri. So sometimes if you order from the nursery, they kind of get the seeds from all over and plant them in there and licking them and send them out. So some of them, if you don't have a seed that came from northern Missouri, it may not be quite as well adapted for the cooler climate that you have up there. So, but yes, generally dogwood and persimmon should do well all across Missouri. Yes, Marcia, I can send the link for the extension webinars. I will pull that up. And I will say that persimmon will attract, you'll find deer and turkey grazing pretty frequently on persimmon as they fall, come later in this. Usually it's the end of September, beginning of October. Okay, there's the link for the Summer Woodland Steward series. And I can also going to give it, if anyone's up in northern Missouri and interested in the Women Owning Woodland, Women Caring for Land Field Day, it is, if you've been to any, so I had one in St. Genevieve last August, and then we had one at Southwest Center in June. So it is the same field day. We kind of just trying to make it so it's accessible as we move around the state, so more people can attend. And then I have the flyer for next month's Lunch and Learns. I just haven't gotten the registration set up, but I have on our kind of docket from our conversation last week, I'm going to expand into an herbicides for forestry. So we'll talk about a little bit of an overview of herbicides that are commonly used in forest management practices. And then August 9th will be forest measurements. So you can learn some of the terminology and the measurements that we use to assess forests. And then I kind of put this in the rotation fairly regularly. August 16th, we'll talk about making mushroom logs again. And then August 23rd is what's the tree farm system. And you can learn what it means to be a tree farmer and have that official, what makes you an official tree farmer. And we'll talk about that system that they have in place. Nikki, that's great. I look forward to that. Say, I also have, I know that there's always some interest in this group. Tentatively planned, I have October 15th at Southwest Center for a chainsaw course and November 5th for a chainsaw course here at Wardak Research Farm, which is near, it's like south of St. James, north of Salem, kind of in that area. So if you're interested in that, so we're going to do, it won't be just women, it'll probably be mixed group, but we will be having those hands-on chainsaw courses so you can actually see, and we're planning to let participants run a chainsaw in the afternoon for just from the skills that they're learned, they can put them into practice. So more to come on that as far as registration. Anything else, Jay? Sorry, it's a short one. There wasn't as much to talk about on Acorns as I thought. All right. Well, have a great rest of the day. Yes, I will definitely pass along chainsaw registration when it comes available, for sure, with the links to that. No problem. Have a great day. I'm headed back to the woods. Hopefully it cools off, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.